All right, good evening. I call to order the city council meeting for the city of Boardman, August 2nd, 2022 to order. I will stand and do the pledge of allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Drago,
Here.
Council President Pearson. Here. Here, you're both here. Councilor Williams.
Here.
And Mayor Keeper.
Here. We'll move on to approval of minutes, July 12th, 2022. City council regular meeting.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the minutes from the July 12th, 2022 regular city council meeting as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any question? Roll call, please.
Councilor Drago,
Yes.
Councilor Pearson,
Yes.
Councilor Williams,
Yes.
Council President Prophet,
Yes.
and Mayor Keeper.
Yes. Minutes, July 19th, 2022, our city council special meeting.
I move to adopt minutes from July 19th, 2022 special.
A motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. Is there any question or discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Drago,
Yes.
Councilor Pearson,
Yes.
Councilor Williams,
Yes.
Council President Prophet,
Yes.
and Mayor Keeper.
Yes. Financial report ending June 30th, 2022.
Okay, that's also the end of our fiscal year. I want to point out that we made our GEO bond payment for $818,466, which is our Fund 510. Along the left-hand column, you'll find the fund numbers. And then something I know Mayor had asked and was interested about is how much we're paying in the garbage vouchers. The new garbage disposal company switched softwares, and so all their billings have been very late, and we just received the one for the April vouchers, and that was only about $1,400. And so we'll wait to see when we get the ones for July. But we had a good year end. The only fund that I don't want to point out that had a shortfall in revenues, as you can see, is the water fund. That's number 220. And I've been following that fund, and I was thinking we were going to end kind of low. So I don't know if you recall, when we did our budget, I had a transfer to get that fund, to give it a little bit of a help. Our summer just came in a little bit later, as we all know that we're just getting over that heat wave. So I'm sure here these first few months of the new fiscal year, we'll see that water fund coming up as everybody was irrigating more and trying to keep cool. And I'm sure kids getting wet, sprinklers nonstop, pools getting filled. So those are my items to point out. If anybody has any questions?
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to do public comment? We'll go down to our action items. Ordinance 1-2022, non-exclusive franchise to Pendleton Overground LLC DBA PDP Fast.net. Do you have anything you'd like to share about that one?
No, they just are starting to do business here, and they just need to have a franchise fee, and so they'll start charging you whatever, 7% of the $56 will come on your bill, I'm sure.
Okay.
So, but everybody else has a franchise fee, and so it was just time to get theirs implemented.
So that's just more of an information
Yes, this is just
as I was looking at it, it was
Business
just an
work, yeah.
information on what's gonna happen.
Because you know, you just give them permission to use your right of way and they, like everybody else, so it's, yeah, standard. And the attorney, did this up for us, so.
Does there anybody have any questions regarding that ordinance for the PDT Fast .net? Go ahead.
Well, I was just looking at the item here, and it says, except as paragraph 2 or 3 of this section, every ordinance of the council shall, before final passage, be read fully and distinctly in one open council meeting and by title only in the second meeting. Do we need to do that?
Yeah, so the procedure for an ordinance is to make a motion to read it fully and distinctly. In the second, and then choose somebody to read that. And I will vote and then have somebody read it.
So we are voting on it.
No, and then the next, we're just
We're
reading.
reading the title only, so we're doing titles.
The full thing into the record.
Okay, I didn't catch that. That's what.
At
we
our
wanted to
next
do.
meeting, we'll read it by title only, we'll make a motion and a vote, a second and a vote to read it by title only. And then we will have a separate motion to adopt the ordinance, and then we will vote on that.
So we need to have the title. only.
The entirety of
I
it.
have the whole thing.
The whole thing?
Well,
This whole-
no, so all this bold,
Well, isn't that the title?
This-
I was referring to all in bold black, but yes, okay, so all in bold black.
I'm going on past practice. I don't know positively.
I can't hear what you're saying, so.
So we were discussing on what the title was, she thought I meant the title only was ordinance 1-2022. And I was referring to the whole titles, all of it, what was in bold black. So that's what we were discussing. So we need to read all that's in bold black.
We need to read this top part. As in,
The two whereases.
and the title.
I'll do what I normally used to do. The City of Boardman Ordinance 1-2022, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive franchise to Pendleton Overground LLC, DBA PDFfast.net, hereafter referred to as grantee, its successors, and assigns the rights of privilege to provide non-cable telecommunication services within the city and to utilize the public right of way. Whereas Pendleton Overground LLC, DB, doing business as PDFfast.net, and Oregon Corporation provides telecommunication services within the city of Boardman, Oregon, and whereas grantee has applied for a telecommunication franchise pursuant to local ordinances relating to telecommunication related in the public right of way. And the city of Boardman City has reviewed said application and has determined that it meets the requirements of the city's ordinance, subject to the terms and conditions set herein.
Thank you, Mrs. Dudley. So then we'll just do the second reading next. Okay.
Because sometimes if it's been an emergency and that's the day we have to have a full quorum. You know, and I've called a couple of those when it was really important to get that done. And everybody has to be here. And so everybody, since we have vacancies, and this is an emergency anyway. I mean, you shouldn't use emergency unless you need to.
So we'll move on to resolution 17/2022. The psilocybin ban. Everyone is able to read that direction or the ideas from the LOC. As well as the resolution.
Well, I would like to move that we adopt resolution 17-2022, resolution approving referral to the electors of the city of Boardman, the question of permanently banning silo-side and manufacturing and service centers within the city of Boardman.
Is there any questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Draco,
Yes.
Counselor Pearson. Yes. Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Council President Crocker,
Yes.
and Mayor Heath.
Yes. Other business, IGA for emergency medical services.
Mr. Mayor. We're gonna need, on the ordinance, you're gonna have to take a motion in a second. And then we'll move on to the next.
Do we need to do a first and a second on the first read? We didn't do that. Okay, so we'll need a motion for that.
I move that we adopt ordinance 1-2022, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive franchise to Pendleton Underground LLC, DBA PDT Fast.net, hereinafter referred to as Rick T, its successors and assigns the right privilege to provide non-cable telecommunication services within the city and to utilize the public rights.
Is there any discussion over that? We'll do a roll call.
Was that, just
Oh,
real quick, was that a motion to accept it or to read it?
to read it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion over that? Roll call, please.
Counselor
Yes.
Counselor Pearson,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Council President Crocker,
Yes.
and Mayor Heath.
Yes. So we'll go back to resolution 17-2022, psilocybin ban, and we have a motion. Did we have a second? Was there, and we what? Okay, is there any discussion? We did vote on it? Oh, sorry.
We threw you for it.
Okay, so other business, the IGA for emergency medical services between Boardman Fire Rescue District and the city of Boardman. Chief Hughes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I'm requesting is approval for an IGA between the city of Boardman and Boardman Fire Rescue District to continue providing emergency medical response. As you are aware by now, the health district is actively working to try to eliminate us from responding to medical emergencies day in and day out, which will be a reduction in medical response in the city of Boardman. The model that I've been pushing actively on is no different than you would find in the city of Portland, where you have a private ambulance company responding to medicals along with the fire department. That brings the right people at the scene at the right time and provides better patient care. I'd also encourage you to consider later on adopting an ordinance that continues to allow us to run medical aids within Boardman proper as it provides care, and that is our end goal. The current the ASA was originally written in 1991. And today's newly approved OHA ASA ambulance service plan has virtually been unchanged in 31 years. We're trying actively to push a more modern, nationally standard response model. Our goal is to provide backup ambulance service eventually to Morrow County Health District as a secondary response ambulance. Primarily when their ambulance is out of Boardman on a call or busy, we can take that next call that comes in. Conversely, if with this model, if Irrigan ambulance was out on a call, then the Boardman Health District ambulance could move to Irrigan and Boardman would still be covered. Those are just a couple of reasons why we're seeking to get an ambulance transport license, but we don't want to reduce care, patient care, to our community. We believe that's a mistake and it could cost a life. So we're asking you to approve an IGA between the two entities.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief Hughes?
Is there a term on this IGA? And are there any conflicts with any agreements that are in place with the county?
So the city has the right to enhance their service according to the ORSs, as we understand them. And that would be up to you guys if you want to put a time limit on the IGA where we revisit it every 2 years annually. They're written in all sorts of manners, but it's whatever you're comfortable with.
Does the city have any financial obligation? in this?
Absolutely not. We're a fire district, so we collect our own taxes and we pay for the service through those taxes.
I was just thinking about we were all covered under the sheriff's department, but then the city of Boardman has its own police department. We do pay for that separately.
Yeah,
So that's why I was asking.
right.
Just to
So,
clarify.
and when we respond to a medical aid, our paramedics get to the scene, they start care, use supplies and that sort of thing. Those, we do not charge for those or try to get reimbursement for those.
So I have a follow-up question on the ambulance transport license. How long do you foresee it taking the fire department to get that license?
That is a great question. It's in OHA's hands, Oregon Health Authority, and they take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to process these requests. And we're in the pattern somewhere, and so we're just waiting to hear back from them.
Because if you're the first responder and the other ambulance is busy, how do you get people to the right amount of care without a transport license? So that's my question.
Right, so that's why we're, so, you know, the question has come up, you purchase ambulances, but you don't have a license. Well, the process is you have to have an ambulance to get a license. And we're trying to do a couple of things with our ambulances besides just be a backup to Boardman, you know, Moore County Health District. We've been asked by our partners in Umatilla to assist them in some of their overflow calls and that sort of thing. So we're trying to be good partners in with our fire agencies there as well. So it's a complex deal. And the first part of it is getting an ambulance license. Now, once we have that license in hand, we have to go back to the county and ask them to adjust the ambulance service plan to allow us to be back up. They could deny us, but we would still be able to provide service to our partners next door. So, and we also have interagency agreements with the bombing range and Oregon Military Defense that we would like to enhance as well.
This agreement doesn't have anything to do with transporting, is that correct?
No, we do not transport. We're a licensed, non-transporting agency with the state of Oregon right now.
To provide paramedic services.
We do provide paramedic services.
Does anybody else have any questions for Chief Hughes? Is there a motion to accept or reject this intergovernmental agreement for emergency medical services between Boardman Fire Rescue District and the City of Boardman?
Would anyone in the council like to see this amended with a time of to be reviewed?
My only question would be, I would like to dig into this a little bit more. I don't know if this is something we can table to make a decision on, so I can learn a little bit more and ask some more questions. but I'm happy to hear anybody's thoughts and input.
Because you can always make a motion with the time, and then there can be discussion after the motion.
Well, I'm not, may I? I'm not opposed to an intergovernmental agreement, but I'm wondering why is that necessary? Maybe that's my real question. So do you have to have the city's permission to offer this service?
No, what I'm trying to do is make sure that we remain responding to medical calls day in and day out. The health district is actively pursuing, trying to block us from running medical calls. So, for instance, let's just say that occurred. The health district would be dispatched to a medical call. They'd get to the scene, they would assess the patient, and then determine if the patient was sick enough at that point, then they call us for help. So then you have a processing time through 911, a dispatch and response time, and now you're delayed patient care by 6 or 7 minutes, which is exactly what happened last week. Exactly.
They don't have paramedics on their ambulance?
They do and they don't. It depends on what day of the week and what time. So it's not, they have from basic level to paramedic level. I couldn't tell you without being at the station if they have a paramedic on duty or not. The other day, there was an intermediate on the scene and they told us that they had the call, they didn't need us. Within about 20 minutes later, they called us back requesting the paramedic CPR is in progress. That's not good patient care. We would have been there from the get-go. The patient could have gotten paramedic level care and possibly had a better outcome. I'm trying to avoid that from happening in the future, assuring that we are on the scene. The issue becomes is when you call 911 for service and you say, my husband's fallen down. Well, what if he's had a heart attack? What if he's unconscious, no pulse? And now you're waiting for an ambulance to show up, them do an assessment and then turn around and call us. There's a huge gap delay in patient care. I'm trying to avoid that. The national model, you know, up and down the I-84 corridor is that fire and ambulance respond together. The patient outcome is better and the success of the system is better. I could point to Chief Stoko, who's been on calls waiting himself for ambulance service and can tell you that, you know, our presence being there has been invaluable. So again, I'm trying to, instead of going backwards to an older model, continue moving forward and providing the best patient care that we can provide.
I guess I'm not as abreast on the topic as maybe you guys are.
And
Because I was
hopefully you're
looking at
not,
the
I
tape.
mean, that means you don't use 911, that's all a good thing.
But I didn't know that they didn't have a paramedic 24 hours a day on call, ready to respond. So
No,
that's an important component of wondering why we would need to do an intergovernmental agreement.
Correct, but just one well spoken will.
I've been pretty adamant on my social media about the importance of providing the best care. I've been pretty adamant that regardless of what the decisions are, I don't believe we can afford to have Boardman Fire not respond. I use the word all hands on deck. I think it's very important that on any call that we provide the resources that need to come as quick as we can get there. And if they're not needed, then they go back. I just don't think that we want to limit that in the city of Boardman. And with this intergovernmental agreement, I believe that the city of Boardman is saying that we're not willing to sacrifice our citizens' care due to some political disagreements that are happening between two agencies. And that's why I've been so adamant about my views on thinking or saying that we need to have everybody respond. So that's kind of where I've been going with my social medias.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to execute the intergovernmental agreement between the Boardman Fire District and the city of Boardman as presented, but to be reviewed in 12 months and to be signed by Mayor Kiefer on behalf of the city of Boardman.
I can second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now's the time for discussion and questions that we have about the motion. Yes.
I have a question. So this IGA is strictly for the city of Boardman, so nothing outside of the city limits of Boardman, is that correct?
Correct. So our fire district right now, we will continue to run medical aid within our entire district. This IGA is strictly between the city of Boardman and Boardman Fire and not the county area.
May I ask a question, one
Yes.
last point of clarification? So in the event this goes into place, how would an emergency call look? Can you reiterate how that would?
Yeah, so right now today, and our mission is to make sure it stays this way forever, is that when you call 911 for a medical emergency, Morrow County Health District's ambulance and Boardman Fire with their paramedic responds to the scene simultaneously. We arrive basically virtually together. In most cases, we go in together, patient assessment is started, and then there's some exchange of, at what point does the health district take over and transport? If we get there, we initiate care, and once the health district gets there, if the patient's not a paramedic level call, the paramedic transfers care to the ambulance transport providers and they transport. If it is a paramedic level call, then our paramedic continues care, gets on the ambulance, transports with the health district. So patient care is continuous and, the same across the board.
Thank you for clarifying.
Is there any other questions or discussion? Okay, so roll call, please.
Right. Counselor Drago,
Yes.
Counselor Pearson,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Council President Prophet,
Yes.
and Mayor Kiefer.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
If I might, the ambulance and the fire department responded to my granddaughter, who it turns out is allergic to a particular nut. And my son panicked and called because it was getting bad. And I passed the fire department after a city council meeting going home and found everybody standing in my living room with my granddaughter. So I am very grateful for the kind of support that we have here in
Thank
town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to council vacancies. So you want to take over this, Karen, the council vacancies, or do you want me to?
No, I think that you have 2 vacancies, and now you'll have to decide what your procedure will be to reappoint.
So before we go on to that, I wanted to publicly go out and address the 2 vacancies. The first one, Katie Norton gave her resignation on July 12th, 2022, the day that she moved residency out of the city of Boardman. On a couple days later, Mr. Paul Beagle on July 15th, 2022, also put in his resignation due to medical concerns. Unfortunately, we're only able to do these on regular meetings. So that's why it appeared that we were holding off on doing the vacancies. They had been given their resignation. They were not taking part in the city council after their resignation. And now we need to address on getting, filling in those 2 vacancies. So let's see, where did we have that? Oh, council vacancies. Okay, so in the past, the process to fill a vacancy on the council has been to have the mayor announce the vacancy in a city council meeting. We just did that. then the council will come to a consensus on a date for the council to interview interested parties by using questions that have been used in years previously or new questions approved by the city council. So I guess what I'm saying is, do we want to establish a date to be able to address those? I think that would probably be our first thing. Do we want to do it on our next council meeting?
Don't we have to have this publicly notification?
If you decide tonight that you want to do it at your next council meeting, then we would advertise it for a certain amount of days, whatever you decide. Usually a couple of weeks at least, and then you set a date for them to have their applications in. And then they
The yellow sheet, if you haven't seen it.
come and before you on the next council meeting, and you have some questions, you ask them in public. And that when their interest, their letters of interest, we'll send you all out so you can look at what they're interested in. Then you'll have questions that you'll ask them in
Other
public.
business.
So akin to the process of when I was brought into city council.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
I
Oh, you
would,
don't have it?
That's right.
Because I think. How many of you were appointed? 1, 2,
Well, at one time or another.
one time? Okay, boy,
Like in 2002
yeah,
or something.
19 or something.
Yeah.
So if we do it
2 decades ago.
next council meeting, that would give 4 weeks to announce. Do you think that would be appropriate time?
Oh, that's funny.
Sure.
Okay,
Do we want to have a deadline for receiving applications?
Yes.
so before we go to deadline, let's make sure we get the date. We want to do it on the next council.
I'm open to that.
September
Yes,
6th.
September 6th.
Which is the day after Labor Day.
it is. That's not a problem.
I'll have school, so I'll be here. So September 6th.
That's the next council meeting.
Okay.
And so if you,
We don't have a deadline, right?
Previous.
Thursday.
what days can we? Oh, we don't have to publish this in the newspaper though. So we can do that tomorrow.
I
or
was
Friday.
thinking that either
So then if we
Thursday
have
or
to turn
maybe
it
just like
in
the
on-
week before, maybe like a Monday or Tuesday to give us time. If we need that, just to consider
In 2
what Mike's
weeks,
turn.
the 24th.
Yeah, I would say the Tuesday before the 6th.
7:30.
Yes, the
And
third.
that gives us 4 full weeks to accept and collect.
What are you saying?
A week to review as well.
So we're gonna have the candidates who apply come on.
No, I think you're not giving yourself or the staff enough time to get them back out to you before the holiday. Well, if you want to do it on the 30th, that would give us 4 days. But if you're gone on Labor Day, you're not gonna look them over. I was thinking perhaps that if you closed it on the 24th, that Wednesday, or even the 26th, it would give us enough time to get them out, so you had time to read them.
Sure.
And,
That makes more sense. I
yeah,
disregarded the fact of the holiday.
yes, and so, yeah.
That gives 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we'll start publishing, because we don't have to put it in the paper, you just have to put out a public notice, and so we'll put it, on the website and everywhere we can think of, that people here in Boardman are gonna read it, because that's all that can apply,
Sure.
so.
Thank you for the
Could
recommendation.
Mr. Kiefer put it on his social media?
I don't know about that. I think that's getting out of Boardman.
I don't actually read your social media, so
It's been videos.
I don't watch those either.
You're missing out.
I'm listening.
Wednesday, the 24th, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's probably would be good,
24th of September. No,
because that would give people,
it would be August.
people would, if they're interested at all, they know it's open anyway, and so they're probably anxious to apply.
Very excited.
So you've already directed yourself what you're gonna do. I'm just going through the little checklist here.
So Karen, you asked the question about putting out the city established council rules. When somebody turns in their application, could we give them the council rules at that time?
Yes, I think we should,
I think
because
that'd be a good thing.
yeah, I think that so many people, and over the years, I'm just gonna be honest, people have ran for the mayor's position particularly, that had no idea what the mayor's position does in our community. So they've been disappointed, kind of. And so I think it's just better that they, know that they have to live in the city limits, that, there's certain meetings you have to come to. Whatever you guys decide as a body, you all go out in the public and keep that as your mantra. There is no individual like, well, they voted yes, but I didn't like that, and go out and do the opposite thing. And so those are the kind of things that they need to understand when they want to be a counselor.
So do we want to, so when they turn in that, do you think we should ask them if they live in the city limits? Just,
I think on the application, it
oh,
says,
there's, okay, I've never looked at the application, so
no, they would have to know that.
we already got letters of,
Jen would tell them if they,
We
they
do
have-
have an application.
Pardon me?
You actually have an application.
I don't know.
Well, I don't
think there
remember
was
filling
a
out an
letter.
application. I just put
I
in a letter of
submitted a
interest.
letter of interest
I
with
did too.
references. I don't recall an application.
I
And
know
that was
either. So that's why I'm asking specifically. if We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, we have questions already prepared, that you can decide how many you want to ask or something, but no, I think it is a letter of interest, and you state why.
That seems to work well.
Sure, but maybe we could confirm that they live in the city limits when they
Yes.
drop off their letter.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I will do that.
and so just for the heads up, letters of interest will be provided to the city hall, no later than
To the city manager.
the city manager. It says right there. Wednesday, August 24th. Do we want to put the end of the day?
Yes.
The end of the day. On Wednesday, August 24th.
That way we can get them out to you. What day does school start? The 29th?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you will be busy that week. So, yeah, it's better that we get them out.
So I probably, maybe just, I know there's some questions, but I probably think there's some questions that you might have.
Do you want us
I
to
think that
send
there's a
out the
setup.
questions ahead of time to you so you can look at them?
And then I would say if we have suggestions, instead of emailing to everybody, so we don't violate, we can just send suggestions back to city manager.
Well, we can just send out the packet when I send you when we send you the letters of interest. I think I can send you.
There may be a question on there that I might want to ask that might not be on there.
That's right. So, and that you discuss before, whenever you get ready to ask the questions, you decide the questions you want to ask.
Okay.
So,
Besides being kind of shell shocked from the experience, I felt like the questions that I was asked were challenging and it made me consider what my conduct would be in situations as well. But I can understand that. What was here,
well, and we probably need to look at your questions, like if you have questions, maybe you ought to send them to us. And
I would think so.
you got to rephrase that a little bit.
And then I think that I've participated in a number of these opportunities to appoint new people to the council. And we've had mayors in the past who tried to vote in executive session. But should be very clear that our vote is done publicly.
It would be.
Yes.
Yes.
And results. Yeah, no, it's,
Would it be inappropriate to get together before trying to, I mean,
We gotta think about that.
I don't, it sounds like process to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, because process has to be in there.
well, I mean, agreeing on the questions, not the process. We need to, I mean, I don't want to just come up with a question that nobody asked.
What
Like
if-
these-
After reviewing the questions, if anybody had a concern, then we can decide if we need to. meet again.
Well, I was just trying to, because I did the issue of a form. That's my thought, whether that's valid or not, I'm just thinking, there should be an agreement on what the questions would be, whether that is the city manager who decides that. That might just take out all the liability.
Sorry.
Are you the parliamentarian?
So the question was, trying to, if there was multiple, trying to agree what questions we wanted to ask. Instead of just a blanket question that might be on the form that could be 10 years old. So. Do we need to, how would we agree, the council agree on the questions before we ask them? Is the question.
Typically, you could come to consensus as to which question, but you've got to ask the same questions. at the same
Correct.
time. So I would suggest picking what questions are of interest to you. And send them to the city manager so she can review them and
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Send them back out.
If she did it, then that takes, we give the suggestions and then we're not talking as a forum.
right, if you send them to the city manager, she can calculate or pick the numbers and then send those back out to you before you guys ask them. That way you guys know.
Might be.
And as far as the other questions, we just need to vet to make sure that they're legal questions that
Right.
we can ask.
And that was the other concern.
Well, and sometimes maybe, I know I've been on panels where that night we all get here and we say, you ask number 1 and you ask number 5 and you go do 2, you know what I mean?
And
you
nobody's
know-
doing question 11.
Yeah, yes, and you know that that will be your question. I don't care how many people stand in front of you. And so that way it makes you less nervous probably and then. Yeah. So.
Okay.
No, we'll get this done too. So.
Any other questions about that? Okay. Okay, all right. We'll talk about the city manager recruitment process. So trying to put some things together, working with the city manager on as far as a new city manager, and we probably need to make sure that we have a job description prepared. And then we need to make sure that we have a job application, and we probably need to have some sort of a timeline. And we think those would probably be 3 big topics to talk about right now. On how we're going to do that.
I'm going to show you the easiest one to
Okay.
tackle. Was we have known, somewhat known times of what we're expecting. So we need to have it done before the end of the year. So we can get on this as soon as possible.
I agree. I would think that we would need to meet sooner than once a month to make that requirement.
I'm gonna be devil's advocate on this part. When we meet more than once a month, that puts us, that's asking our staff to do more. They're on salary. And if we continue to meet after hours, that's probably not the best for them as well. Even though we are used to meeting that, that's asking a lot of our staff. And without being too rude, and we changed our direction on how we want to do it. So is that really fair to all of a sudden cram it into September, October, November, and December?
Well, my opinion is, if I was to talk to the advocate of the devil, everyone that would show up at these meetings comes to many other meetings, and that is part of the position that they hold. And
For us.
And I'm speaking to city staff.
Mhm.
They're here for many other meetings than just ours, and they know that that is their position. And our position is to try to execute this as fast as possible. And waiting 3 weeks in a time period before we make the next decision does not look like we're executing that plan.
So we're gonna do a process in 4 months instead of a year.
We have till the end of this year, if I'm mishearing Roy, on when our city manager leaves. So trying to work by that timeline. The easiest one to tackle, is when the timeline that someone is taking that position will be open. I would say that we need to make a committee akin to how we did when we were looking for the current position that we were trying to fill in the past, which would probably require all of us, and if we have any volunteers, I would say that we would need to open up the application process for at least a month. For giving us time to get a pool to be vetted, and then we would need time to review that. Everything within that time does not look like it would be done within 5 to 6 meetings to the end of this year. I did not know the requirements of this position when I ran for election, but I'm trying to execute all the requirements that I'm learning I am needed to attend to. I stuttered on that to make sure I was stating myself clearly. I would just ask that maybe the mayor would reconsider if we're appointed as advocate.
Well, we have a counselor who also shared that it takes a year to do the process correctly. I don't believe it's fair to our staff to ask a whole lot more. They come once a month, they have other meetings. And I do believe that it's important, but, you know, 4 months is asking a lot, because we've got advertisement, we've got who's gonna create all these things, and we're gonna add all this onto our staff who's already swamped. I think we need to really think about what their jobs also are as well. And I'm gonna stand up for our staff a little bit here, because they are already busy. And when are they gonna find all the extra time if we cram it in 4 months? On top of what they already do. So I'm just saying that we need to be considerate to them as well. And is it important to try to get this process going? But how many months did it take when we went through Kaufman, when we did that original process with a person who actually knew what they were doing?
I think that probably started in August, and we had the public meeting in December. You know, because you talk, there's a lot. Let me just read to you what I think that you're going to be charged with. I think the very first thing you're gonna have to do is get a job description. You didn't like the job description that was in the packet, so you've got to get a job description. Your next thing would be to do a job application. So you'll have to review a job application and make changes. I can send this out to you if you in the morning if you'd like. Then you're gonna have to set up a timeline about designing your advertisement, what your advertisement's gonna look like. Where, you know, and like advertise the position. Decide how many days you're gonna advertise, what the closing date is, where you're gonna advertise that. And I'm gonna tell you, the advertising is a huge deal. Because if you only advertise in Morrow County and Umatilla County, you know, I mean, if you're really looking for somebody to come from farther off than just our local communities, then somebody's gonna have to receive the applications and review them. You have to set up appointments with the ones that you decide that you want. Then you have to call the others and say, sorry, you know, you didn't meet our minimum qualifications. And by the way, you're gonna have to set up some minimum qualifications, I think, that you're interested in when you do your job descriptions. You're gonna have to make appointments with the people that you want to see. You're going to have to schedule motels, travel arrangements, meals, those kind of things are all part of this process. A date for the community meeting and greeting. And when you do that, you need to arrange the room, the publicity, snacks, and the forms that you would like the public that attend the public meeting to fill out, because it's really nice to have a form that they can make a comment on, you know, good or bad, or I really like this guy, or whatever. Then you're gonna have to look at those community comments. I mean, that's not a 10-minute job. Personnel interviews, call and get people to be on an interview panel, and then you have to ask them if they are willing to set aside a half a day or a day to come into City Hall. And then you interview, depending on how many candidates you have, you'll have 2 or 3 interview panels, and the panels usually are, you know, maybe 4 or 5 people. And they're charged with asking different questions, so they move from one interview panel to the next. Then after you, and on that day, because that usually takes all day, you usually start at 8 in the morning and you're finished, and you have lunch, and then you debrief with the panels, and you the people that were on the panel. You want to make sure you have to send thank you notes to those people that were willing to come from the community and be on that panel. Now you have to make contact with the finalists and interview them in person. I think that that's an important step, that you interview after everybody else has had something to say about them. Then you interview them in person. And before, that was my job and the Providence job. I mean, we worked that together. Then you offer the position. Now you have to let all the other candidates that were interviewed, that they're not, they didn't make the cut. And then it goes to the background for the background investigation. That part, the background investigation, is the only thing that you will not take part in. That whoever is chosen, we send their packet of stuff, we take it over to the police, and they do all that interview. So I'll send this to you in the morning. You can think about how much time each of these things are gonna take you to do. You know, I mean, your job description, I don't know. I don't know what you're looking for, and so, but there's a lot of preparation time here.
And just interrupt real quickly on, and these are the options that you follow for the assistant deputy city manager position. We have some flexibility in that, right? We don't necessarily have to follow that, but that's the process you follow, correct?
I'm not sure how you're gonna do it if you don't follow a process like this.
Okay, no, I appreciate the feedback for sure. I'm just confirming.
Well, is there something on here that you think you'd like to skip?
Not necessarily, no, I
Okay.
just wanted to take a full account of the process that you use, the benefits of all of it, and then accumulate a timeline for that.
I would also just like to go forward and say that within the job description that was given, I had no issues with. So
That's not for me to decide. You guys decide that.
I didn't say anything in reference to making you feel like I was saying something for you to decide. I was just saying that if we were to move forward with the job description, the one that I had read, I felt comfortable with.
I would want to just confirm that that it's current, and that would be important for your input, Karen, to ensure that it still covers all the tasks that you're doing, since it's not been updated since 2003.
And that
I
was
want to
the
make sure
only,
it's inclusive.
and that was the only concern I had as well when I read through it. I have like, this is on the job description of the job. More about, does this really reflect what Karen does?
And current tasks, responsibilities.
To be be quite honest with you, I think this is way more than what we are capable of doing with our jobs that we have. I think as I'm looking at this, this is way more than what I think that we can actually handle as our own. I know in our last meeting, special meeting, we talked about doing it on our own, but I think we'd be crazy to even try to attempt to do this on our own. I think we should hire somebody. I think we should really look into hiring somebody, a professional that would do this and could make the advertisement. I mean, no advertisement guru to be able to do it, to make sure that they do all the context, make sure they do all the phone call. I just think if we try to tackle this is way beyond my scope. I'm not on doing this, and I think that's why there's that profession. Be able to do that. I just think if we want it done by December, before January, we should probably look at hiring somebody and say, this is what we want, this is how much we're gonna pay, and go forth and conquer.
Mr. Mayor, I totally appreciate your concerns. Those are all very valid. Is this something, I may be completely incorrect here, but Jen has a HR history and background and professional experience in this. Is that something that we could utilize her in this process as perhaps part of a committee member where she would provide guidance in the hiring process with the job descriptions and making sure that we're following the correct protocols, for instance, and utilize somebody here who has the experience? If you do, I'm not sure if you really do, but is that something we could consider?
Well, something that, if I can counter that question, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay, that I'm also curious about, on kind of on that same topic, is I'm hearing a lot of, this is what you have to do, this is what is being read, this is what you will have to do, you will have to do this. And that's true, like all the items, it's very nice of us, for us to put a catering together. But is it not our ability to, one, we will be acting as a committee to review these applications, but also we are directing the city within this. So it will not be, to my understanding, us that is talking directly. We will be working with the city to have them promote and for them to work with. If we decide to go with the company to help us make choices that we feel like are above our head, then Mr. Mayor, I see also the logic in that. But I will try to help any area of this that I can as much as possible. But if we also direct the city to be doing some of these things for us, if I am not mistaken, and I will gladly say, okay, if I am mistaken.
And I appreciate the concerns about the time that this would impose on staff, additional time members, or excuse me, time. But I'm curious, this isn't something that we do on a regular basis, and we want to dedicate the time needed to do it correctly and thoroughly. I don't know that it would be inappropriate to ask staff to assist in based on their skill set levels, if they're available in-house to do that. I'm not sure.
If I can ask another question. My question, so I can just kind of understand how we're talking, is if we are to decide this day, we open up advertising, would we not go to our city and make sure that they're going to be putting it in a paper, that they're going to be advertising how they want? Because it's not going to be me that's logging onto these websites to say across a national database, there's a job open.
I don't know that I'm gonna say anything different on this topic. And I can appreciate this process. I can. I hire almost every, well, not every day, but I hire often. And I walk through that very process from picking out the job description, going through the going through the advertising, vetting all the applicants that come in, et cetera, to the offer letter, to how much that person can make, are they qualified to do that job, et cetera. And so I can appreciate the amount of time that goes into that. I really do think a committee is going to be in our best interest. We may also need a company, Prothman or something similar, to help us get that nationwide reach. We can use Indeed. I have a nice Indeed account, but I don't know that that's the professional level we're seeking in this effort. So I think that we might need to do both things, both the committee piece, the committee that can do some of the heavy lifting and bring that information back to council for review, for direction, for agree that's good, disagree that's not good. And then work directly with, for lack of another name, Prothman, until we get where we're headed. If we look at the timeline and we say, we really want to have everything done by January 1st, I can remember hearing that date distinctly. And we just do a backward divide the months up. That's only, what, 5 months, 4 months? So that only gives us so much time to do each piece of this. And the longest one is going to be the recruitment. And then the vetting. In my opinion.
I just see hopiness coming down the path. Just so if I'm somebody who's looking for $150,000 job, and I'm looking at a process that is being developed, I'm thinking, I'm afraid of what they might think. When you're looking. Because normally when you're hiring for a city manager and you're hiring a professional, you hire a professional to be done professionally. We are not the professionals. And yeah, we can cut corners and do some things, but if we're gonna hire the best city manager, why aren't we gonna windig them and just give them a show them what this is all about instead of. I mean, September's coming up next month. Very busy. I've dedicated 1 month, 1 day in a month, and it's gonna be very difficult to do. I'd say you can't, but that's gonna be very difficult. So I just don't want the city boardman to do something that is not in a professional manner that we could do. If you hire somebody and do a professional input, and when you're doing a city manager, have more input, probably can't. If I have all the time to call people and make an advertisement, arrange flights, and things, I probably don't have that time. I know for a fact there's staff are gonna have a very difficult time doing that. And if you hire somebody professionally to do that, they do all that legwork, then they come say, hey, this is the date, then I make that date out. I'm just saying, I'm just afraid that we're gonna leap into something that is way beyond our scope, and then next thing I know, it's gonna be October and we're gonna say. That's what I'm afraid.
What if we put together a committee? A committee, 3 people, to choose the advertising agency, to seek them out, get started, go over the job description, have some clarifying questions, come back to the September meeting with, I don't know, the first 3 or 4 parts.
I'm not trying to spend $25,000 to do it. I don't have time to do that.
What if you don't have time for that?
But that's not fair. I mean, I think you're being unfair to me.
I'm not saying anything about you specifically.
No, I mean, it requires more time. I think that's being unfair to me as far as doing these things as well as our staff. I think that's.
I agree 100%. Those are valid concerns. It's an alternative to put together a committee, and maybe it's not just us, though, that can bring in other partners that we utilize in this community. People who have voices who can contribute if we have it. staff member perhaps, if we have somebody perhaps in the chamber who's highly involved, and perhaps maybe somebody from the port or other entities who might be willing to contribute to this process, knowing that the city manager in the future would be working with all of those
We can
players.
provide additional pay for them to do that.
We don't have to.
You don't think if I give it more work to an employee, that they deserve to be compensated?
Well, I know that as a salaried employee, I am expected to complete my job and its duties in a timely way. Whether it takes me 6 hours or 10 hours in an 8-hour day.
But if I had more on to them to do, you don't believe that they should be compensated? If I'm gonna ask the chamber, that they shouldn't be compensated for doing that extra work?
So isn't part of it volunteer, like a volunteer and be interested in your community? Interested in the outcome, interested in I volunteer for things. I volunteer for things all the time. I volunteer to be a part of the committee that interviewed the Port Immortal. Executive director. I mean, it's volunteer piece.
We had a different process on that. I'm just saying, we're gonna add all this extra stuff and we're gonna expect that they're gonna do that on their own. I just think that's not fair.
Well, then they don't have to volunteer.
And then we're gonna have only, I just think it's a bad road. We're gonna have to.
I think that you'd be surprised how many people might be interested in that opportunity.
I think the last time we had a process like this, if I'm mistaken, everyone that was a part of the panels was volunteers.
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about all the other stuff.
You're talking about the community.
I'm talking about doing all the legwork before that. We're just talking about communities interview. I'm not asking that. I'm talking, we're gonna talk to the chamber and maybe have them do some advertising. They deserve compensated for that. They deserve, I mean, that's extra stuff. I think we're
I don't
Mr. Mayor,
think so.
the city would have to advertise the position. And if they are an entity that helps the city, then that's just something that they're throwing out there. I feel like I understand a lot of your worries, but a lot of these things are the pressure of the situation as well as the responsibility.
I just don't think it's fair that we're gonna be asking people to do more. So I'll leave it at that, because I just have a soul on this. And I'm going out of record, I'm just saying, I don't think it's right that we do that. I don't believe it's right. I think that we should truly be looking to find somebody to do this for us, so that we don't increase our liability, we don't do something wrong. We have somebody that does this professionally, can make these things, and I just, that's where I'm at.
So what if we created a committee to go out and find the advertising agent that could do that for us? And then brought that information back to the council for the September 2nd.
I mean, I don't have all those contacts. Being finding that committee that has all those contacts.
Well, I think that the League of Oregon Cities would be a great resource for us, and it's a telephone call away to find that information out. That would be one way that we could start that process. I think that the insurance company, CSI, she had several different names that she could have offered, but she was not, it's not her place to say one or another over another one. But I think she has a list of possibilities. I know that there are lots of recruitment agencies that could serve us. And then probably is a couple of Google searches to get some, to just get the conversation started.
Who's the firehouse?
No, I assumed that. And everybody left.
Well, not everybody, I guess.
Okay. The fire people. Yeah. That would be one way to get the ball going. And if we go back to the timeline, and we say by September 2nd, we want to have someone that we can propose for hiring. And that the job description's been reviewed, a conversation's been had with Karen about the content. And if it really reflects the job that she does. And if it doesn't in some way, or it does, but it doesn't cover everything, then we can clarify, clear up, and create so that whoever the council decides would be a good advertiser could be given the proper information.
I would recommend that somebody volunteer to head up the committee. That person is here that wants to do that. But Paul would have time to do it, so I guess he's not one. We talked about this all night, but unless somebody's gonna step forward.
I would volunteer if you like.
When you say the advertisement, what are you thinking in your mind about that?
Well, I would probably have a lot to learn about advertising on the national level, but I assume, and we know what assuming is. But I would assume that whatever company, Prothman or someone like Prothman, would give us guidance about how that's advertised. Do they just go out to send a blanket letter to all the cities in Oregon? Do they send something out to cities all over the nation? Do they advertise in some city manager magazine? I mean, I don't know. And I'm making a little fun because I don't know and I'm a little nervous about this, but I would be investigating it. I would try and figure it out. And I would hope that whoever's on the committee team with me would be acting on that same level, trying to get the information, figure out what to do and how to do it, and come back to the council so that it can be decided collectively. But I would just be bringing information, whatever information I could gather. If you put me on.
I think he was just looking for a volunteer.
Well, I was suggesting a volunteer.
Right, and I'm just saying we need to move somewhere beyond board.
I totally get
Right,
that.
so even if it's to hire somebody to take this process over for us, still needs to be a committee to decide who that would be. That would include, I would hope, the city and the council and public.
Well, if we hired an agency to do it, I don't. think
That's not the question. What agency are we gonna hire to do it? That should be decided by a committee. Correct.
Or
I
the
said
committee
or-
should, or the committee should vet and have 3 or 4
Three or four.
alternatives for the council to make a decision on.
I'm just saying what we're doing here isn't working, right? So we have a committee that can help steer the direction of where it's gonna go. And I don't think it should just be council, it should be city, should be council, should be public. Should be partners with the city.
As far as the agency picks it.
As far as the committee group decides.
Oh, the committee decides, yeah, that would be once we get applicants, things like that.
No, I think we need to be, have a committee well before application happens to decide how we're gonna go forward.
So I think that if we put it out to the chamber, our partners like Fort Morrow, possibly another local entity, I don't know, the only thing that's come to my mind is a church or something, but if we put it out there to the public and we say, is there anybody who'd like to be in on that hiring process? And then we have to have some limitations. You have to be a resident of the city of Oregon. I don't know what the other things might be. But if we put something like that together and we had one person from the staff and the rest of this team together, we could look at that information. People could divide and conquer some of those jobs.
Sounds like you just volunteered, right?
Yes.
We never volunteer. Anybody that gathers, jumps on your train.
Well, I could only have, so if we were going to invite any other counselors, we'd have to limit it to 3.
Sure. True that, at least right now.
Okay, I think for forever.
Well, if we get 2 more, we'll have 7. It could be limited. Or no, 3. 4 is important, excuse me. You're right. That's the limit.
It's,
Yeah, right now you can't have.
I can't have.
You can't have more than 2.
Right, 2 right.
No, actually, the form is not affected by vacancies.
So 3. Good to know. Thank you. Good to know that.
Thank you.
If we're moving in that direction, I will volunteer to join the committee.
So we have our 2 volunteers.
And Leslie, you have experience in HR, is that correct?
Management, not under the HR umbrella, but management, yes,
Okay.
and hiring.
If we're moving in that direction, and this is just giving an opportunity for some of the gentlemen to speak up, I'd be happy to be part of that as well.
Yeah, I already said I don't have time.
I understand.
And she's until October. I'm done.
Well, and the committee could change too, you know, we could get through part of it, and then the committee could be the first 5.
So I suggest that there's a lot of pieces to this, and I think we should be able to take adequate time. If we just report the next meeting.
Okay.
I would think that give you 4 weeks to be able to get some things together, see what's on the plate, and give suggestions on what we need to do or not do. So
So, if I might, the committee would be charged with finding a number of recruitment agencies. Let's pick 3, can we do 3?
Yes.
We would at least bring 3 back to the council for review. With a little spreadsheet or something, they probably have a blurb about who they are and what they do and how well they do it, and what their price costs are. And then, the committee could also seek to find 3 additional members for the committee outside of the city council. One of them could be city staff. If the city staff was willing. And then we could look for, does the city council have a preference about where the other 2 entities are?
If you look at me, because
I'm trying to give the equal eye contact.
I do appreciate that. That's also, I think that within city limits was, and I felt like that was fair. That is the effect of the city manager.
Should we
But
also include then within city limits and or staff? Not all staff live in city limits.
it's fair as well.
Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't know where all the staff is.
yeah, there's some that don't live in the city.
So. Or staff, yeah, okay, my mind was taken in this process, what you said, but yes, I think that's probably something. If the rest of the council agrees.
If I can ask another question, would the city be able to advertise openings for the committee through city meetings?
Or would we just call up those agencies and see if there's anyone on those that is employed by them living in the city limits who would be interested? Yeah, no, I'm adding to your ads. Kind of that. Just kind of out of preference.
I think your first call needs to be to the League of Oregon Cities, to see if you are even in the realm of doing this job, you know? Because there are some things that, just call them and ask them if you want to form a committee to do the hiring of a new city manager, what would they consider the process to be?
Okay.
I can find that out too. So
Yeah, and yes,
I will have a bit, because the attorney, one of the attorneys showed there, the mayor's office.
yes,
And then, so I can find some information out
because,
and try not to be biased.
yeah,
I'll try to share what I
Yeah.
find out, the facts are not there.
And also, oh, I'm sorry.
So what?
It's okay. Do you want my seat on the committee? Is that something that if you're gonna go and do that work? And
To see, no, I'm gonna find out information on what the board and city has to say, because I'm gonna be there, and I'll have an opportunity to talk to some people who are there to say, hey, we're fine, we're looking at searching for a city manager, what are your thoughts about that?
And I was just mentioning that, and this is not me being sarcastic to you, I just want to say that if that was the work that
I would be doing over the next month, and you're gonna do that, then I can just, because it's already within your plan to be able.
Well, I'm just looking at people, what was it gonna hurt if you find somebody else too? I'll let you know when we talk to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Compile whatever you find out, mix with whatever we find out. on
Because I'm not
committee.
trying, I just knew I was gonna be there, so.
Do you want to email that information to us so that we have it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I would.
perfect. Yeah, well, I didn't figure that out.
I'm sorry, yeah.
For official purposes, Mr. Mayor, you need to appoint this committee officially.
I think the mayor does appoint.
The mayor needs to appoint committees.
Got 3 people who want to do it, so yes, 1, 2, 3,
Just for the record.
for the record, there you go.
On
Yeah.
the books. Would it be inappropriate or appropriate to ask that in the interim, but before we have our figured out? Could we ask the city manager, Ms. Pettigrew, if we could get a review of the current job description and any additions or concerns that you have with it, edits or feedback?
Oh, right, I'll look at the job description.
And we'll take that into account and have that ready to roll.
I think that sounds perfect. Thank you, Karen.
All right, so we're ready to go forward to Concord for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get phone numbers so that we can plan meetings.
All right, we have our task review.
All right, so our next item on the agenda is discussion about the meeting videos that we have to be posted on the website. We're looking for discussion. Consensus, but one way or the other. Because that would be directions to the staff. So I would think that we would need to come to a consensus on whether we want our videos posted to the website as we have done in the past, or not to do that.
It's not a legal requirement. The county doesn't do it, the board doesn't do it. We were the only, I think there's hardly anyone that really is doing it.
Hermiston, Oregon does it, not just Hermiston, Oregon does it.
Good, but yes,
Just to compare to another city.
that is 16,000.
Well, we were looking at entities that do keep up that stuff. We were mentioning ones that didn't, we also put forth some that did as well.
I think she's getting, might make the point in our area where we're not the only ones that have been doing it.
Yeah, I just provide some feedback. I know that there have been a few members of the community who found it beneficial and have asked me personally why they're not there or can they be added back in. So I see the benefit there, but I'm open to understanding any other concerns that might be on the table.
I completely understand why agencies don't. I completely understand why there's certain organizations that don't post them. But if they are not recorded, there's always a way to record it. For people who want to record it. I'm not saying one lean one way or the other, I'm just saying. Sure.
It's an excellent point.
I think the point is, and I'm not trying to sound dense, but I think the point's a little lost on to me. What was the point? And
The point is, people are using people are using recorded videos for not what they're intended to be used for.
So it would be,
And it's so easy now in today's technology to use those videos that are not being intended. So I understand why there's entities out there that don't want to videotape them and save them for posterity like that, because then so it can just, I can cut and clip and do everything else I want with it, take things out of context. Or they could watch the video or come in person and they could record it as well. So there's that avenue as well. There's nothing, if there's nothing to hide, then we're human. Somebody wants to make fun of us or pick on us because we're human. Okay, I ran for this position, so fire away. I'm not perfect. I will make mistakes. I'm the first one to admit it. If anybody says they're not making mistakes. So I think we just need to have a direction for our staff on which way we want to go. Whether we want to continue to post them, and we post them, then we take whatever comes with it. Or we don't post it and we take whatever comes with that.
So I have a question, maybe this is more for the city staff than it is for the council. But since we haven't been posting them, it's my understanding that they do get uploaded to some kind of a server or something, and all of the city staff have access to the same videos. Is that correct?
They're stored on Zoom. I have been moving forward because we're running out of room storage in our account on Zoom. Moving the older ones over to our server.
So if we're not posting them and people don't attend the meeting and they don't attend the video meeting, how else could they find the video? Because there are people who've seen council meetings that have not been posted. So how else would they see them?
Oh, individuals,
Yes, individuals. who
maybe they
listen.
recorded it on video.
They weren't part of the meeting. So how did they do that?
To say that,
Public records request.
oh, public records request.
So we had public records requests for our recorded city council meetings? We have. Okay.
And that brings up a good point, whether or not they are posted, it could be requested. Is that correct? So the access is still available.
And the minutes will always be there.
Mhm.
It's just you don't get the video.
I personally feel. I understand what you're saying, Paul. I am not, I mean, I'm human and not perfect. And I have said many times that like, I'm trying to make sure I'm standing to say the right things, but I'm not going to every time. And I think about some of these conversations more than any of the rest, and to make sure, did I say the things the right way? But I see it as something that the city started, and it is a tool for a very immediate way for people to say or to see what is going on. And truthfully, there's the minutes, but some of these minutes are just counselors have discussions. And what if what I said meant a lot to me? And it was just summed up as counselor have discussions. And I'm not saying that's happened, and I don't want to put that imprint in, but for my words to be represented well, wouldn't it make me feel good if somebody could go back and see exactly how I saw them? And before I was in council, I watched our meetings. And it made me feel like I was connected to these topics and these situations before I sat on this line, knowing that I might not sit on this line. And I did come in and I sat at some of these meetings, but not all of them, because of the schedule stuff. And I just don't see why I should be afraid of somebody trying to pick apart my words when I know how I meant them. And if they have an issue with how I said my words, they can ask me. And I am here, and I have talked with people that have gotten a hold of me, and I have communicated how I meant my words. And I feel like that is what I should do, because that is how I believe the right way to communicate is. And I'll go home tonight, and I'll think, did I say everything here the right way? And did I make sure that, I wasn't trying to offend them, and that's just what I do. But I'm not afraid for someone to look at something I've said before I've approved it, because I believe in what I said. And I think it's helpful, because before I was a part of this side of things, and I was sitting there, it felt really nice to know instantly what the city was talking about, and I wasn't able to make this meeting.
Don't believe it said it was great.
No, I know, not even, I didn't,
My point was is that we need to make a decision on the way there.
I was just saying, I meant no reflection to anyone that sits beside us.
My knee-jerk reaction is to be afraid to post it out there. But I also recognize what you're saying and what you're saying about being human, about recognizing that sometimes the words that come out of your mouth are not going to say exactly what you intended them to say, or that they could be misinterpreted, but by and large, I don't know, I think that it's bad habit. Even though they've caused.
And if we don't put them out there, we're just like everybody else who doesn't. Many others, I should say, many others. Or if we do, then we're one of the few. So as a council, we just decide which direction we want to go.
What is the process to get a video of your block? How far back can we go? What is the process?
So I don't know how far back you go, but I think if you just do a public request, you know, if we have to put it on a thumb drive, then we're gonna charge you for the thumb drive, which is like, I don't know, $3 or $4, wasn't much. Whatever the new fee schedule said. And, but yes, I mean, we can give, if you're interested, if you're so interested that you wanna see the body language and stuff of the meeting, then you could do a public records request.
And I
Otherwise,
think that's fair.
What I'd like to see, and if we're not, if we don't, it should be on there regardless, is I'd like to see our whole package being to be attached. That's what I would really like to see. I think, and then people who are watching could follow along.
We are working on trying to update that, software, put the packets on.
That would be really nice, because Mark County School District doesn't. That would be a really nice thing to be able to, I think. I think it would be above and beyond.
no, we agree with that because it's nice to have the agenda and be able to follow along with the minutes and whatever else is in the packet so that you're familiar with them. Yeah. No, I think we're starting to work with the web guy.
Very motion that the city continues uploading videos to YouTube as a standard that was done until pre-term take. Stop.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
I hate that I can't watch the county commissioners on a timeline that's appropriate for me. Because they hold all their meetings while I'm at work. And I would like to know what else, I would like to know what happens in the county,
We can't conversate until we have a second.
then I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Sorry, it was just, now we can. Okay,
No,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
really hate that I can't watch that meeting. And I would like to, because I think that there's things that happen in the county that are germane in my life. And I can't find out what's going on because I can't attend the meeting.
You can't publicly request the meeting.
Well, I of course could, but that would be a trip to Hefner, wouldn't it?
I didn't know.
I don't know either, but I'm assuming that it's a trip to
I
Hefner.
don't even know.
You
the
do a
date
public
for it.
request here, you have to come to the city council, or you have to come to city hall to
They're
get
not
your.
recorded.
It's online. The public record request comes online.
Oh,
How do you get your? Yeah, you have to come to city hall and get it.
That's just so you have to have.
I have to go to Hefner and get it. So,
And I'm just asking a question.
so that's my knee-jerk reaction is not to have my face out there for adding denial, but at the same time, I would like to see it in other places, and so if I want, yeah, I'll want the other.
The reason for my motion, even if I can continue this. Like I said, it's just because I mean, it just sounds like we're creating an extra step. Yes, if someone really wants it, then yes, they should want to work and, do the steps needed, but at the same time, this is just a public meeting. Like, they want to take it in here, so it's, why would we create an extra step if someone just knows, I can go to the YouTube page and I can watch this right now, and I can put it down when I need to, and then I can come back to it. It just seems very seamless and easy. And I personally just don't understand why we need to add extra steps to the accessibility that we want our people to have in this town.
So does it cost anything for us to do the YouTube video downloads? Obviously, it's time, so there's time to do that. Is there a cost involved?
No, besides our annual Zoom subscription, no.
Okay.
And so if we record them, then yes, they must be made available for public records requests. If we do not record them and they're just a live meeting, then there is no record of a recording. So then if somebody were to request it, it does not exist. So that's where you have that difference and how some of these other organizations, even if you try to request the recorded meetings, may not have them because they don't record them. They just have them live.
Oh,
And I think the county
Yes.
commission is like that. huh? They
Yes.
record them. And it's frustrating because you can't get the information any other way.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other question or discussion? All right, roll call.
Counselor Drago,
No.
Counselor Pearson,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Prophet,
Yes.
and Mayor Kiefer.
No. So we will be, the motion passes 3-2. So we will be posting our videos onto the webpage. All right.
Is it time to do the signatures? So are you gonna tell
Yes.
Oh, that's right, I have it right there. Jen, your turn.
So, have some household documents, which I said, which passed in ordinance. And then I have some minutes for the mayor to sign. Mike Lees contacted us regarding the minutes from our regular meeting on June 7th. And there were a couple of scrivener's errors in the percentages that were typed, which was miscommunication between the auditory hearing, and so I corrected them. The process to correct them is just to notify you of the scrivener errors, have the mayor sign it with those errors noted or corrections noted, and I will be posting them to the website.
And I will explain to you, the thing that was, the scrivener's error was when Mike was doing the presentation about the seepage of the lagoons. When we typed it, we put the decimal in the wrong place. So in the minutes that are online now, it says 1.42
This one.
when it should have been 0.142.
That's a big
Because,
difference.
well, and the other one is like 0.008 something. So yes, it's a huge difference. And what, I'm sure what brought it to Mike's attention was that I think you can have like 2.5 or something, and so, anyway, it looked like this was over, and, you know, he wanted to make sure that we understood that that's not what he said, that was not what was in his presentation. And so we're just bringing that up, and we'll add that to our files of this, of the minutes of that meeting, so that we can remember, because what you find is that it's really clear today, but 2 years from now, it's not so clear. And so we're trying to do better about adding that old stuff.
I think now.
No, it's nearly 9:00, we've talked till.
Ready? Police department.
You should have all received a copy of the month-end report for the month of July. Remaining busy. Line, but it's still remaining busy, so. Unless you have any questions, that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, may I
You may,
add a
yes.
comment to that? So I just want to share publicly that in my business, I meet with people who come in from the community all the time and are moving to our great hometown. And I heard a rave review about how our police department responded to an incident recently, and I want to thank everybody for making this new person feel very welcome and safe. And the continued response and support that has been provided to this person has been phenomenal. So thank you very much for all of your efforts.
We have a very dedicated team of officers who truly care about this community. So
Absolutely,
I will make sure they hear that.
especially for newcomers. So thank you.
Any other questions for the police department? Building department report?
Well, you can see that we're still just selling permits like no tomorrow.
Especially with the interest rates.
Well,
It's
yeah, see, still doing, new homes,
Yep.
3 a month, that's pretty good.
Any questions for the building department report?
I just wanted to draw attention that there's been 131 in Boardman, and in the county as a whole, it's been 148. So we're almost identical in terms of the whole year. That's big. That means, well, you can take whatever you want from it, but it's a big deal.
Here in 71.
That's substantial for Gilman. Gilman's doing pretty good as well.
Public Works Department,
Okay, if you look at the public works, entry in your packet, they're busy. I think you should, notice that in the bullets, the second bullet down, it says, compost passed his water treatment test and is now certified, and he is not now certified, but, Cambero passed his first test, and so he will be a Tech 1, I think is the term. So that's exciting because they've worked hard to try to get certified. And
so both Juan and Louise are.
yes, both of them. Well, Cambero is doing wastewater and compost does water.
Oh, I got you, you
Yeah.
passed the waste,
Yeah, so
nice.
Well, and it, just for note, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks once you pass your test to get the actual certification. So we're just waiting for that, but where he's passed, at some point, he will become certified. So we're just waiting for his certification to come in.
yes, and he's taking another test tomorrow, so.
And I noticed that there were new devices in the dog park today surrounded by the orange cones.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was some pretend firefighters, which I don't know, I was going very fast, but there's more than 25. That's on phone.
I'm afraid the kids are gonna wanna play in there now, because it's gonna have some really nice, things for dogs to run through and, yeah.
I did hear something sad about the dog park today. There's, okay, so I'm not big on social media, well, I'm in there, but I'm not. But supposedly there's some kind of a big thing happening about the dog park and how people aren't cleaning up, and there's people from the freeway that are just letting the dogs do whatever, and so there was some complaints about the dog park. I don't know. That really doesn't really fall under our purview, but something that,
I think it's just, it just happens. You put the dog bags out and, you can't go down the street and yell at people that are walking their dogs and say, you have a bag, you're good, but, you want to, because, yeah, it makes it,
Karen used to think that if we put up a sign and we just follow the rules, And I said, that's why stores have the signs in no shoplifting and the problem solved.
Well, I'll tell you, with the new Tesla stations next to the Sage Center, everybody wants to come use the bathroom after hours down
Yes.
at the daycare, and I put up the big signs saying no public access. And I cannot tell you how many people walk within 15 feet of that door, read that sign and get disgusted and turn and walk back. But I no longer have anyone urinating on the front lawn, which is a huge improvement.
It's, I don't know, you know, you try to offer nice new things and
Yeah.
so, but no, the guys are working really hard, doing a good job for us. And you can see how many new meters we put in this year, so. That means new houses. Well, some of them. Well, that should be new meters. That shouldn't be replacing broken.
That was interesting for the 10 private wells within the city limits. That was
Yes.
an interesting number.
Yeah,
And I like the standard. If it was my will, I probably wouldn't like the standard, but I do like the standard that there is a backflow preventer.
oh, they just have to have one, or
You
they.
just have to, I mean, you
Yeah.
bite the bullet, you have to put it in, but
Because that's what would contaminate your water in
you
your
have to
neighborhood,
protect the water.
if nothing else.
Are there any other questions about the public works department? We have any committee reports?
This time, Carla and Rolf did a memorandum before, and it's not on the agenda here. But they did a report on what they've been doing in their, the last, she says, since February 15th of 2022, that they have been really busy. So I hope you read this, because like you know, we had a couple LUBA encounters, and we're working on the interchange down at the port thing, and so there's lots of information on just day-to-day work that we do here. So I was happy that they put this together for you.
Yes, thank you. All right, I'm just gonna go.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to say that Randy Yates called me probably yesterday and said how happy he is with the street down there and the new road and the sewer and you know, and it really changed his lot, because you know, it used to be you always stopped when you got to the office. You didn't drive on through, which was kind of like driving through their lawn kind of thing. But now it's paved and you can drive on through, and the office is on one side and the storage units are on the other. And so but he was so appreciative. He did mention that if we had the old Yates Lane sign and they weren't gonna put it back up, that he would like to have it. I said, well, I sent a note out to the public works guys, and we'll see if we have it.
I had a question about that, sorry. Who is is the city in charge of putting up the signage? Right now, on the turns, right now, they're just little signs. Are we, as the city, the one that is responsible for getting proper signage on poles?
The contractor will be putting up signs. We want to have the job complete by next August 15th.
Oh, so they still have double things.
So he has, yeah, I think that's actually about all we're waiting on from him is the signage. Oh, yeah, and hydro seeding, because today we might have noticed wind was blowing. But no, they're basically done. And so, and if they don't, I called Devin to see if he had some signage, because, you know, if he would just put Pacific Pride with an arrow so that those fellows knew they had to go up and around, because they're trying to figure out, well, everybody is, I mean, it's, you know, you get,
Gonna take some practice.
yeah, it's just getting a new habit. But, because I think we're getting really close to being done up there, and that's gonna be, and I was so happy to have Randy take a minute to phone us, so I wanted you to know that. We received an email today, the Cres Threes will have a meeting on the 8th at 1.
Did that come in today?
Yes, it came from the, but it's more like, we're not really in a way part of Cres Three, but
Oh, that's why, because I'm not invited to Chris 3, I'm
Yeah.
Chris 2.
yeah,
Unless it's in,
they just have to elect officers and something,
So
so,
authorize the payment on the bill,
pardon me?
and authorize the payment on the bill
Yeah,
to the lawyer.
and
so
so,
that's a date that I don't need to worry about.
no, I don't think so, I'll go, if you won't need to. And, let's see. Is there anything else I want to bring up to you? Well, we did the mushrooms and I put in here that Carla applied for the Transportation Growth Management grant, and so I really hope we get it this time, and she did a nice grant application, and so I think this time we have a lot more reasons that they really need to look at us, so we can update our plan. We're going to sign Thursday, we're gonna sign a new agreement with a new auditor. You know, our other auditor has failed us a bit, and then they told us in March that they wouldn't be able to do our work this next year, so we're gonna go with Barnett and Morrow, and he's gonna come over and talk to Marta and I Thursday, and I told him we were just a great outfit and that we got all of our records just there way ahead, so he wouldn't have to charge us so much. So we'll see if that works. I put in here the attachment from the Loop Committee, just because I just want you to see that how many vacancies they have for their business. And then the next one was how many rides are from April, May, and June. And, Erican has the most riders every month, but they have the most veterans, I think. And the Linda Skisdale, or I'm not sure that's how you pronounce her last name. She's the veterans coordinator, and she really works hard at getting veterans to take advantage of their, the things that they're offered, that they can use. And so many of them don't know what they can have, and so she really works hard at this, so that's a plus for the Loop. And I guess that's all.
Thanks.
Oh, see, I told him that he had to do this report, and he said, no, that's yours.
So, I think it was the week before last, I went out and met with the new commander, colonel out at the Army Depot for the Oregon Military Department. He's the new commanding official out there, and his second in command, a lieutenant colonel and a lieutenant. We had some really good conversations. What's interesting about this, I don't think people understand, is that OMD is going to, Oregon Military Department is going to make this one of their primary training sites. And so when they get a full build out, they're going to have about 146,000 troop days out there. What that means to local businesses, OMD, they give them a credit card and they go to Home Depot to buy lumber. They go to mom and pop's Ace Hardware to buy materials, they buy local. What's also interesting that I didn't know, because when I was in, you got to eat with the mess sergeant cooked. Now they actually cater all their meals. They found out it's cheaper to do that, so they use local vendors to cater those meals to feed those troops. So it's a lot of good information. It's going to be positive, I think, for local businesses. Of course, it increases traffic and all those good things, but there's going to be good things coming from that. We also had a long discussion from a law enforcement stance, because it used to be, we used to go out to to the depot to use their firing range, and then it got so, almost, well, the last commander said no law enforcement, and now this guy is opening the door, but we still have a lot of red tape to go through. We've got to try to get all of our officers through security at the gate. It takes time to get them there, get the pre-approval to get them on the base. And then they have to have their staff monitor range control and limit what our functions are. And as we explained to them, we have different shooting movements that we do that require you shoot and go to a different location. And the military doesn't like that. They don't want anybody hurt, and so they take it very seriously. So we're going to do our training plans, make sure that we meet their ammunition requirement and have good discussions. So we're working on it. I don't think it's going to be a fix, but it may have a potential option. So great communications. The colonel was very good to us and wants to be a good partner with our local community. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Well, and I noticed on the front page of the newspaper, maybe Saturday, something in the last couple of days, there's an article about how much money they're spending out there too, that they're doing lots of improvements out there. And, you know, the first man that came said that they had a STEM program out there. And so, and it's 5 weeks. So if your child starts on a Monday, then they go 5 Mondays in a row. And we said, well, no one knew that you were doing that out there. So they're trying to get more people encouraged to, you know, so I think it's kind of a positive move on the military's part, because we've struggled with them over the years.
Or council comments.
City officer, I just want to say that we're having a lot of hard talks, and honestly, I'm really proud of all of us. It's just so minor, but I think a lot. Good job, everybody.
I had a question about streets. So I don't know, it was a number of months ago, we were gonna have a company come out and do streets, and I was wondering if they've come and done streets, if we've received that report yet.
What did you think they were gonna do to the streets?
That's kind of a traffic study.
Oh.
Just an awful-
I was thinking, did you say that?
Did I say it wrong? Because I think that part of the traffic study was gonna include the corner of Thaler, Mount Hood, Chaparral, that corner.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, I had a question about it the other day from a person.
Yes, we haven't, he hasn't finished his job. We had a meeting, phone meeting, and I think they're gonna finish, but I'm not sure when.
Okay,
Yeah,
just curious.
he's still. There's more to that than I realized, besides, you know, doing that, so, yeah. And they are working on lots of projects here in this area, by the way. I mean, everybody has them hired to do, I mean, they're busy in this area.
Any other council comments?
Well, I have something. I was asked by several people in the public. I was intimidated or harassed last meeting because of the number of police officers that were at. I don't know why that would have happened. But I said I was not at all. I thought they were here to support both chiefs, and I was happy they were here. But somehow that perception was out there. So I just want to publicly say that I was never intimidated or no any kind of harassment at all. So.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I did not ask any of them to come. They have a right to come to the city council meeting. Did I invite you guys here? I mean, so I'm assuming that they are concerned, and I think rightfully so, because moving forward, it's going to be an interesting proposition, and it affects all staff here at the city. So if people are offended, no, I'm sorry.
I just want to record that I felt no intimidation or no anything
was never
support.
I can't imagine it was intended to.
Yeah, I was.
See, it's funny that people would look at it that way, where we're so happy that they will take time out of their private lives, and they're so good at their jobs that you get an opportunity to say, good job, fellas. That you would think that that would mean that, well, just because they came, and oh, by the way, tonight they're not even in a uniform. But anyway, yeah, it's just, it's back to that Zoom thing. Is,
Well, I just real quick, I just want to finish up. Part of the success for police department is community involvement. And I drive that home every day to all my staff. Be part of the community, be involved. It's important for the success because if people don't feel that their police department is connected to their community, how do they have any faith in it? How do they trust it? So, yeah, I expect our folks to, and I encourage them to be part of.
And I just want to tell them thank you for coming, because I appreciate this. That's all.
Anyway, that's,
On that note, I would just like to encourage all of our members of the community to come. It's been really nice having an audience and participation and feedback and input is very welcome, whether it's here in this platform or when we're out in the community. Really, feedback really matters, so thank you for being here.
So I got something really cool in the mail today, when I came here. The city of Boardman donated to USS Oregon, which is a submarine, and it got commissioned. So because we were a donator, the city of Boardman gets a nice plaque to recognize that we gave a donation. So that's yeah. So I will end up giving that to the staff, and they can find a
Did it
place.
come with a picture of the USS Oregon?
It's in gray, it's just a,
Oh, great.
yeah, kind of an engraved type thing. It's a submarine.
Sweet.
And the last thing I would like to share is when we are looking for individuals who want to volunteer for appointment, the one thing that I have been sharing with people is the number one goal that we, I mean, about the only thing we get to do, and it was the council set city policies and goals. So when people volunteer and they think they're gonna make this massive change, there's a rude awakening that everyone I think goes through is, one, they learn how slow city politics or government politics is, and two, that things that we're really limited to, policy and goals. And I would really encourage, that's when we were looking for those people that I've been talking to. That's what I tell them. I said, the biggest thing is we're policymakers and we're goal makers. And we get to be the public eye of the community. And no matter what you try to do, some election, some this. And then I believe every city person or any politician out there truly went into it to say, I want to please everybody. And just can't. And I truly believe that everybody out here who serves as a public office is trying to do the best job they can, or they would do it. So that's the only thing I have. And with that, I adjourn this meeting.
oh, and